Well, it's Saturday, isn't it? And it's a week since the attempts, the myriad of attempts at the Easter Bank Holiday Massacre. It was so strange. But that's just the way it is. But yeah, I came through it as you'd expect. But yeah, another attempt, so on and so forth. To the point where it's, I think it's safe to say this is quite possibly a permanent feature of life. That, as in '97, people will be running around like Wayne Good and the other architects, possibly, I don't know, and then saying whatever, but it's possible. There could be another interpretation of it, don't know, not particularly interesting. But yeah, all that aside, it is interesting. I'll just make this point of how there was, which sort of is really illustrative of things, I think, how there was an epilogue type sequence that these people went with on the ward, that these people were told, were sort of, that was perceived, and then an attempt in the car park to engineer more attempts at that for a variety of things. It's just like, if that is an indication that this is sort of permanent, this 1950s Hollywood B movie, commercial break, commercial TV and radio, commercial 1950s car showroom and all the rest of it, then what would be? What is? They've got, all these things to, they've got something going on in the park, and you do have to wonder, not only is it for the audience beyond the Hollywood B movie, but it's sort of like the guy outside the coffee shop, shouting to be noticed. It sort of is that for that audience beyond the Hollywood B movie stuff, the 1950s Hollywood B movie stuff, there has to be a show where they can say, we've done this around him, and so this, and this. I mean, I see so many things where it's so easy. I've got so many examples to show that I was right, where I can see that type of thing going on, where the ad men and women sort of can, at times, take arguments places I wouldn't go. Even during the amalgam years, the early amalgam years especially, when I wasn't, when I was still, to a certain extent, able to have more critical ability, I did see that, and it was just, bewildering. But that's and it's sort of maybe people who work in psychiatry, don't know about psychology, maybe people who work in psychiatry are just not to be shitty about them, but maybe they're just a little bit outside the other realms of society. And I'm basing that on how they take pretty mundane, everyday stuff and that sort of thing, extend it. But anyway, week after the, I think it's now 15, 16 days maybe since I left the ward. Like I say, a week after the attempts at the Easter Bank Holiday Massacre, a couple of days on from the yet more attempts at a denouement and rerun fever, denouement fever, and a whole load of stuff. Yesterday, me seeing a whole load of stuff that just made me think, well, there we go, and so on and so forth. But increasingly getting on top of it. The trouble is, when I say that, the admin and women may think, well, we can't let that happen. We've got to, or they may say, well, let's see where this goes. I don't know. That's how poor the communication is. But if it's poor communication. Not a lot anyone can do about that, I don't think. But anyway, yeah. And during this time, I've been adapting to time off the ward, despite the fact that I largely kept myself to myself on the ward, and tried not to become too institutionalised. But there's that. You do still. There is still, the routines and so on and so forth. The power works, the institution works, the communication works, the different roles that are played. The fact that as much as you may like some of the personalities, they all are part of an institutional structure that maybe not all of them understand as much as they could, possibly. But yeah, it is still going to have an influence. I pointed out an influence yesterday, where I read an email from the local nut house, and I did react in an uncharacteristic way to it. It does these institutions, even with the most critically aware of us, can have an impact for a bit and occasionally sort of thing. But not only that, not only coming out of the institution and dealing with deinstitutionalisation, but also to an environment where I don't watch TV, I don't watch films, I don't listen to music, and so on. TV, I'd mainly done the work I needed to do with the TV. Well, that's the way it is. And to go back to it would be a mistake for quite a few reasons. I'm also bored of it. Likewise with the movies. Likewise with things like radio, music, and so on. Hang on a second, just have my coffee. It says it's adapted to that scenario. While all the juggins take place all over the place, and so on. Bear with me, I just got a loss of breath, which I probably wouldn't have. Alright, so yeah, and all the different machinations of the admin and women, and their trees and so on and so forth. Of course, are going to buy into all of the shenanigans and the 1950s commercials, because it's sort of some of their heroes, let's put it that way, were part of the amalgam years and the what I see as a post-amalgam years, which I've been gradually working on more and more. Quite interesting the different time, even though there are attempts to jug me up, I'm guessing, to try and get me into that sort of way of seeing time, and the pace of things. But there is a pace away from TV, movies, music, radio, and so on and so forth, that just can be pretty good. like I've said, I can, I do like reading books. I can read books. And that's got a different impact on reading a book. I think you just don't get from any other media at all. Well, yeah, it is something to these different things I've had to deal with. It turns out I'd argue that I was right to not go on to another ward. The stuff, some of the stuff that's taken place since I was on the ward, would have taken place. Like I said, now I know for sure how vulnerable these people can be. The admin and women and the people who work for them, including the Hollywood B-movie people and the rest of it, the 1950s Hollywood B-movie people, that they are so vulnerable to things like perceiving epilogues and then setting up, trying to set up, which is essentially setting themselves up for attempts at big deal dramatic moments. Dynamore fever, rerun fever. This is stuff I said ages ago, and they still went with it. That is evident from the closing moments I was on the ward. To them it's a big deal story. But maybe it's starting to, maybe it will. Even though I see things even today, where you just think to people, get on with it, but it's quite strange. But yeah, yeah. So adapted to a life off the ward. No TV, no radio, no movies, no music. I don't miss any of them. I really don't miss any of them. I mean, there'll be there is often an attempt to, again, with a view on the audience beyond the Hollywood B-movie, the 1950s Hollywood B-movie, to portray how great other people's lives are. Like what happened in the car park last Sunday of the local supermarket. And like I've tried to explain, with the guy shaking his head off outside the supermarket, outside the coffee shop, it's all pretty manufactured. It was very manufactured, and people just I know that from having watched TV in the past. That people really do need to get a life and get on with it, instead of trying to envelop me in a fantasy I'm just not buying anymore. That's why when all this stuff goes off, I mean, it may get them thinking in ways where they think, oh, so much of what I do, going back to past videos, what I do, what I say, what I think, is a big deal. It's just like, as we get the volume turned up on the music, like what happened on the ward when the volume on my phone was turned down, the volume of the trees on the ward was turned up, sort of thing. But yeah, just get on with it. I mean, if people around here, like happened in the car park last weekend, want to enjoy their lives, they don't have to advertise it to me or the audience beyond the Hollywood B-movie from the 1950s, sort of thing. Anyway, I'm guessing that will be the case, if not for the foreseeable future, then for the rest of my life, where it will be like Dustin Hoffman's character in Little Big Man. But we're just going to have to accept that. Ultimately, it's no big deal. Whatever stunts these people pull, I'll adapt, and so on. But the important thing is now to just get on with it, isn't it? Like I keep saying, I do like talking about certain things, but that was important. The the demonstration when I was talking about epilogue juggins ages ago, that wasn't just, I mean, if I hadn't have seen that, then I wouldn't have been able to verify so solidly about notions like epilogue juggins, that maybe these people really did take that type of stuff seriously, as I can see from the closing time on the ward. And then again, and which is the structure of Wayne Good standing on my doorstep, the performance in the car park. How other people can't see this stuff is beyond me. It really is beyond me. And what I say, I don't say it just out of a sense of satisfaction or to signpost, how I'm doing things. But it's pretty interesting. And the admin and women set themselves up to be in the position that the sort of like the architects were in, when no amount of power is enough. And there will obviously be attempts to make my life look like shit, like I said, with the connotations of failure that are so frequent, they have been over time, that it just loses its meaning. I think like with attempts to make it look like other people's lives are great, and mine is shit, despite the fact they have to try and jump me up to engineer stuff like that. It's just like quite strange. There you go. But if that happens, that happens. I'll just write it out and see it for what it is, which is people trying to for the audience beyond the, like I keep saying, beyond the 1950s Hollywood B movie stuff. Well, I could see it. I could see through it. So that's the important thing. It's a bit April the 26th. It's a bit early in the year to be having an event in the park. So yeah. I don't bloody know. Anyway, has there ever been that campaign like it? But anyway, like I said, this is what I've been saying about people trying to make out they've got a great life, and my life is so shit. Well, chemicals and so on and so forth. Despite the fact that I'm quite happy leading a solitary life. But yeah, that's sort of the Johnny and Baby stuff that happened in 2000, and that eventually fell flat. But again, it's like these type of really remedial characterizations, events, attempts to depict events, and so on and so forth, that owes a lot to the 1950s. To a really, I think it does speak a lot about subject users and psychiatry. Not that I consider myself really in terms of a service user of psychiatry. I'm someone who takes the pills, for now at least, but don't really consider myself in those ways. Because I think to characterise myself as a service user would mean that I adopt a whole load of ideas that I don't go along with at all. So yeah. Interesting. But yeah, the goal for me, look, it has been for quite some time. It's been conventionality, level-headedness, groundedness, enjoying my solitude. But it does seem for now, not least with an event in the park, and possibly it's possibly been, which does sort of tie in with what was going on in the car park at the local Tesco's last week, with all manner of attempts to project called Britannia, and the type of dynamic that went on with Johnny and Baby in 2000, where our lives are great and yours is shit, sort of thing. And sort of know to myself, well, if people are having to put in that much effort, like I said in the last video, I think, then it sort of suggests, yet again, how manufactured so many things are, and that's a bit irritating, because you just think to yourself, look, you don't need to produce a massive performance around me, like happened in the car park, like happened at the coffee shop with the guy shouting his head off, like happens downstairs so many times with these people, not least having people run into the flat who she doesn't even know. But stop for fuck's sake, stop manufacturing a 1950s Hollywood B movie and get on with your lives. And then maybe, just maybe, the admin and ad women may think, maybe if we stop doping them up, then we wouldn't, I don't know, we wouldn't be so off our heads as we are.